From the 26th of May, the Scottish Government have drawn up plans to release prisoners with a sentence of less than 4 years still to go. It won't include prisoners who have committed sexual or domestic abuse, however. So I went into the community to ask if you were happy with this firstly, but also ask what kind of message does this send to the victims? Here's what you had to say.
I think it really depends on the individual, the crime, and whether or not they're likely to reoffend. So I don't think you could just judge overall.
Doesn't sound, on the face of it, it doesn't sound like a fantastic idea, I must admit. I mean, a sentence is a sentence. Overcrowding is an issue, so why they are automatically releasing people early, on the face of it, doesn't seem like a fantastic idea to me.
No. What kind of message do you think that sends to the victims, obviously?
Not a great one. I mean, certainly if I was a victim of a crime or somebody who was in prison for committing an offence against me, then I certainly wouldn't be jumping through hoops about the fact that my assailant was getting out of jail early, that's for sure.
Yeah. So obviously, like, they're going to be released back into the community for rehabilitation. Do you think that money's best spent in the community, or do you think it's best spent in the prisons or building more prisons?
I mean, I've worked in the public sector fairly recently, and yeah, there's no money in the public sector at all for anything. It's just one of many things that are obviously massively strained. Government mismanagement for a number of years. So yeah, it's not a quick fix, that's for sure.
No, I don't agree with that unless there's something in the pipeline that's going to kind of help them reform before they get out. Or even if they are out early, depending on the nature of the crime, especially if it was domestic, then I would say that there's got to be more reform and care and welfare for the victim, more so than just putting out a member, basically someone that's been in jail having committed that offence. You can't just put someone out on the street, that's one committed that offence, and what does that say for the victim?
Exactly, that was my next question. What do you think it does say for them? I mean, obviously...
There's no hope in the justice system. They come forward and it takes a lot of courage to do so. And because we are overcrowded and we don't have a system that works, i.e. rehabilitation in the first instance, then what are we doing to protect the person that's come forward in the first instance?
Exactly. Now, obviously, councils are really underfunded at the moment. Do you have any confidence that there would be rehabilitation programmes put in place properly to make sure these...
Not just now, no.
Not at all. What would you like to see done then? Obviously, the prisons are so full at the moment, that's why they're doing this, and there's only sort of 6 major prisons in Scotland. Do you think they should build more prisons, or what's your idea? Any solutions at all?
I think you need to kind of look at the makeup of who's in prison currently and what nature of offences and people that are spending time in prison, whether that be low-level crime, theft, shoplifting, repeat offenders, recidivist, over the violent type of criminal.
And do you think police could be at risk of being selective in terms of the crimes they go after if they know they're not going to get punished as severely as maybe a different type of criminal? Do you think it's going to be selective at all?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be selective. I think that currently as it stands, the reason that people reoffend, a lot of the time, it's maybe through circumstances if we're talking about low-level crime, but if we're talking about people that are committing house break-ins or violent crimes that are just getting released on bail or curfew or tag or whatever that is, then there is no deterrent, so they're not really bothered. They know that there's no punishment at the end of the day, and sometimes a lack of emotional intelligence comes from the fact that even when they're in jail, it's not really that bad.
They are overcrowded. More needs to be done. It'd have to be a case-by-case basis.
So do you think they should invest more money into building more prisons, or do you think you should be rehabilitated in the community? What's your thoughts on that?
Rehabilitation. I have a friend who teaches art therapy in prisons in Saughton.
Wow, super.
And her stories are hair-raising. And she's the only one. She's pushing 80.
Right, okay.
There's nobody coming back. There's nobody trained or paid to come behind her.
Right, okay. And does she see the sort of development that is being done, or is there just not enough being done in prisons to rehabilitate these people?
I think she would very quickly say there's not enough
being
done, but she would also be... I mean, I have met one warder who was running Duke of Edinburgh in Saughton Prison, which is incredible. So there are things.
There are things to help
It's
them.
not that folk aren't trying.
Yeah.
If you're just releasing it to make up spaces, then it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not fair on the victims. But on the other hand, you need to do something.
Yeah.
The status quo can't continue. And you certainly can't go privatised.
No. Do you think there would be selective policing as well? Because obviously they know potentially they're not going to get a sentence sort of thing, so they'll maybe go after certain crimes. Do you think there's a risk there at all?
I would have thought so, because everything is so overstretched and so hollowed out.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. If they're in prison, they're there for a reason, and they should do the time they've been given. Putting them back on the streets, it could cause more bother.
Yeah. What kind of message do you think that sends to the victims?
That they're getting away with what they're doing, really, and they can do it again and just not have such a big prison sentence, or they might not even get put to prison.
What do you think about putting them into the community and rehabilitating them that way, maybe community service or something like that? Or?
Well, it might work, but you don't know.
I think it would depend on the severity of the crime, but I do think that early release can be beneficial. But like I said, it'd be entirely dependent on what the crime was, and it'd have to be based on that.
Yeah, and would you like to see them rehabilitated into the community with like community service and obviously support?
Yeah, I think that support's important in order to get back to a level of having responsibilities and a normal lifestyle. I think that support and counselling would be extremely beneficial. I would have no issues with them being rehabilitated into the community. I could see it from both sides. I could argue both points. If I was a victim, then I would want them to see the full sentence, dependent on what it was. However, I could see the benefits of them being released from prison and completing like community service, or like paying back to the community instead of using government money in prison services.
Yeah, but do you think the police might be at risk of then being selective on the crimes they go after at all? Because obviously if it's got a lesser sentence, they're maybe not going to go after those sort of crimes, if you like.
Yeah, so I could see that happening, to be honest. Because if it may come like it's a waste of energy, a waste of time, a waste of resource to go through the normal steps of going through that process.
The paperwork,
if they're just going to be released anyway.
I think that's good, to be honest. I like the idea of trying to, rather than see them just as criminals that we need to like lock up for a huge amount of time, try and get them back integrated in society as soon as possible. And if the prison service and the system thinks that that's going to make a positive difference, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, so you would like to see more sort of community rehabilitation, that
Definitely,
sort of thing?
yeah. And then give back, you can give back a little bit more that way as well, rather than just be rotten away. In my mind, if the sentence is 4 years or less, it's obviously not the most severe crimes, and you want people to be, especially if it's some sort of like community service kind of thing, they're trying to make the community better.
Violent crime, no.
No.
They should do their time.
That's it. I mean, what kind of message do you think that sends to the victims, obviously?
Not very good.
No. Do you think the police would be selective in terms of the crimes that they go after?
Yes, they're doing that now.
Yeah. Do you think there's any sort of benefit to rehabilitating in the community?
No, because if they haven't tried it before,
Yeah.
that's not going to work now, is it?
So obviously the prisons are overcrowded and it's at a
Yeah.
serious state. Do you think they should build more prisons and obviously spend more money on funding that?
Yeah,
Yep.
because the crime rate doesn't seem to be going down.
Yeah.
So you may as well just carry it up.
No worries. Perfect.
Although saying that, it's a shame that people have to resort to crime to make ends meet.
If it's only for minor offences, breach of a peace or something like that, or things like that, fair enough. But the more severe the nature of the offence, you serve the whole stretch of inside, but minor offences limited with the addition of the community payback order to it.
Not very good. It all depends on what the prisoner's done.
It's all depending on like what like specific crime they've actually done.
Yeah.
And like how they've done it and everything, and like what. And I don't really think that's quite a good thing, because like what if they just let a murderer from like
It depends on like the crime that they've done, obviously. But
What sort of message do you think that sends to the victims?
No very good message, to be quite honest.
Obviously, the prisons are pretty full just now. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? I mean, what should they do? Build more prisons? You know, invest more
I
money
think
in
some
it?
of them could be
Or
all right when they get out and stuff and that.
Yeah.
It all depends on the circumstances.
Maybe
I
a wee
think.
bit more focus in the community, like helping
Yeah,
them rehabilitate
helping them
and stuff like that.
rehabilitate and that. I think anyway that would be a good thing actually. I think.
Perfect.
Instead of them all being in prison like that all the time, some of them didn't deserve to be in someday.
As you've heard, prisons are vastly underfunded and are at breaking point. So this new plan aims to rehabilitate prisoners within the community. But as we've already heard, councils are making cutbacks to things such as mental health services. So what confidence do you have that firstly the community will be safe and also the correct procedures and funding will be in place? Have your say and leave a comment below. As always, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for listening.